In this video, we're going to review how do structures work. The objective for it will be understand the basic members of most structures and determine their functions. Learn the parallels between arches and chains. Identify the presence of these components in real structures and buildings. Firstly, we're going to recall. Before we start, we're going to recall what we learned in this topic. There are different elements that we learned. Firstly, beams. They are horizontal members that carries forces in bending. Columns. They are vertical members that carries force in compression. Brace. They are diagonal members that carries forces in tension and compression and withstands lateral loads. Frame. They're full moment connections and transfer moments and bendings from member to member. Truss. They're mostly made of triangular shape and pin joints. Cable and chain. They carry forces in tension, which is the same at any given locations along the entire length of the cable or chain. Arch. They're curved members that carries forces in compression. Plate. They're thin and flat members that carry tension, bending, and compression in multiple directions. Shelves. They carry forces in plane that are distributed throughout the structure by tension, compression, and bending in multiple directions. Now, let's go over the questions together. The first one is, which of the following statements is most true? A. Beams carry bending, columns carry compression. B. Chains carry bending, columns carry compression. C. Beams carry tension, columns carry bending. D. Beams carry bending, columns carry tension. The next one will be trusses and frames are two different types of structural framing. When we model these two structural systems, there is a key distinction. There is a key distinction we must make. What is it? A. Trusses use pin joints, whereas frames use full moment connections. B. Trusses have diagonal members, whereas frames have 90-degree angles only. C. Trusses are made of triangular members, whereas frames are made of curved members. D. Trusses are used for structural support, whereas frames are used only for extra stability. The last one is, what type of structure component is the large curved white roof detail? A. Shells. B. Arches. C. Plates. D. Frames. Feel free to pause the video and solve the problem on your own. Now let's look at the first problem together. Which of the following statements is most true? Recall what we learned. Beams are horizontal members that carries forces in bending. Where A states that beams carries bending, which is true. Beams carry tension, this is not true. Beams carries bending, this is true. Columns are vertical members that carries forces in compression. So, the first one says columns carry compression, this is true. Columns carry compression, this is also true. Columns carries tension, this is not true. Cable or chain carries forces in tension, which is the same at any given location along the entire length of the cable or chain. It says that chains carry bending, which is not true. Therefore, the correct answer will be A. Beams carry bending and columns carry compression. Now let's look at the second problem. Trusses and frames are two different types of structure framing. When we model these two structural systems, there is a key distinction we must make. What is it? Recall what we learned about trusses and frames. So the frame will be full moment connections and transfer moments and bendings. The first one said frame use full moment connections, which is correct. The second one says frames have 90 degrees angle only. It's not true. The third one says frames are made of curved members, which didn't state in there, so it's not true. The last one says frames are used only for extra stabilities, which is also not true. How about the trusses? The trusses are mostly made of triangular shape and pin joints. The first one says that trusses use pin joints, which is true. Therefore, A should be the correct answer. Trusses use pin joints, whereas frames use full moment connections. Here shown in the picture. Now let's look at the last problem. What type of structural component is the large curved white roof detail? Here shown in the picture. Recall what we learned in this section. Frame are full moment connections and transfers moments and bendings from member to member. It is obvious that this white roof is not a full moment connection and didn't transfer moments and bendings from member to member. Therefore, this is not true. The arches are curved members that carries forces in compression. As you can see that these ones are curved members, but they're not only carrying compressions. Therefore, this one will not be true. The plates are thin and flat members. The roof is not thin and flat. Therefore, this is not a plate. And lastly, the shells. The shells carry forces in plane that are distributed throughout the structure by tension, compression, and bending in multiple directions. This roof are in plane and also they carry tension, compression,